Here's the thing. Will you be changing your plans over Christmas? I could hardly believe this came through as a breaking news story. Just a couple of hours ago, Ricky, I guess. The plan to ease COVID rules over Christmas in the UK is a, quote, rash decision that will cost, quote, many lives. This is according to two leading medical journals. The Health Service Journal and the British Medical Journal said people might see lifting the restrictions as permission to drop their guard. If you're an idiot, yes. Number 10 said the government had no plans to review the Christmas guidelines. Right. Well, if number 10 said they're not going to change their mind, then it must be true. Stand by and don't hold your breath. But a minister did warn people to keep social contact to a minimum over the 5 days of reduced restrictions. It comes, of course, on the back of that Tier 3 acceleration in many parts of the southeast. The editor of both of those journals wrote, "We believe the government is about to blunder into another major error that will cost many lives. If our political leaders fail to take swift and decisive action, they can no longer claim to be protecting the NHS." Are you about to change your Christmas plans based on that? 0344 499 1000. Now, remember, much of the country, well, all of the country has been in some form of lockdown or restriction since March. Sometimes you have to revisit that statement in your own head because you think, well, that's just shy of a year, right? 3/4 of a year. That can't be the case. It is. That's why people are getting made redundant. That's why we're seeing repossessions, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. That's why we're seeing businesses collapse and all manner of other issues, problems, difficulties, dismantlings, you name it. The list goes on. And it's hard to even know where to begin, isn't it? We'll talk about property in sort of the first of a series of our looks into different industries and worlds as to what is happening as we come to the end of the year. And so we've already been in something. And then we had the lockdown revisited, didn't we? And when was that last one? That was October, November. We've all lost track of this thing. And then they came back with a tier system. There'd previously been a bit of a tier system, and then the tier system came back, and that was controversial for everybody. And then yesterday they revisited some of the tier system down in London and parts of Essex and Hertfordshire. And so we've all been in something. And I suppose many of us just kind of hoping and holding out and thinking, well, at least at Christmas, we'll be sensible about this. You know, if your 102-year-old granddad who suffers from chronic bronchitis, don't invite him round to the dinner table. I think that would be fairly reasonable. Somebody who's having ongoing treatment because of underlying health issues that is therefore vulnerable, their immunity is vulnerable, you wouldn't invite them round for Christmas, right? You would just swerve on that unless you were a grade A idiot. And we know there are buffoons out there. We know people who don't, adhere to anything, no matter what the advice is. But are you going to change your plans now for Christmas? Are you likely to say, do you know what? We were thinking about it. We'd worked it out. We were playing by the rules, and we were going to have X amount, was it 3 households you can have? 3 households over the 5-day period. But that's it. So you might have been willing to play by the rules and then suddenly saw this and thought, well, actually, if these head honchos of all things medicine are saying this. It said it was only the second time their publications had written joint journals, by the way, so the two had got together. Ordinarily, the Health Service Journal and the British Medical Journal are 2 very separate things, so they've written this piece together. At the end of November, leaders of the 4 UK nations, of course, agreed to allow some coronavirus rules to be temporarily relaxed. Now, we've just learning in the last few moments that Keir Starmer, this is just classic, isn't it? What did we say in the office just 10 minutes ago? I wonder what Keir Starmer's going to do here. Sadiq Khan proved himself to be the most contradictory, inept politician of all time. And this is a pool that's got people like Mark Francois in it, remember. So, I mean, the list is pretty robust out there. So Keir Starmer has called on the Prime Minister to call an emergency Cobra meeting to review the current relaxations over restrictions over Christmas. Remember, Keir Starmer was the guy that said to the Prime Minister, that you should have a 2-week lockdown. You know, when Wales had a 2-week lockdown. You should have a 2-week lockdown. We can get this thing out of the way and get it done. And he played that card like some kind of flipping messiah. Starmer was right out the traps on that one. Yes, 2 weeks, that's what we need to do. Oh, you haven't done it, Prime Minister. You're a very bad man indeed. It's going to come back and bite you. And what happened in Wales? The 2 weeks ended, and as we all predicted, cases went back. In fact, they skyrocketed as if somebody thought the pandemic was going to suddenly go, well, I better stay out of this place, because Keir Starmer said that locking down for 2 weeks was a thoroughly good idea. Of course, it was never going to happen. It was never going to happen. Now Keir Starmer, what he's doing in an attempt to try and be on the right side of the story, just by calling for the Cobra meeting is kind of enough. Well, I called for one. I've asked. He hasn't given his opinion, notice that. He hasn't said I agree with the 2 medical journals. 0344 499 1000. So let's open this up a little bit here as well. Are you changing your plans for Christmas? Now you've heard this news. This is just hot off the press in the last few hours. That a group of, 2 influential medical magazines, these articles are penned by qualified clinicians and people that work in this world, are saying that the government should think again, essentially. They should, the plan to ease coronavirus restrictions is a rash decision. It will cost many lives, they are saying. The medical world, in this respect, are saying it will cost many lives. If you respect the NHS, you won't do it. So as a result of that, who are you listening to here? Because Boris Johnson is saying, no, we've got no plans at all to review the Christmas guidelines. They're set in stone. That could change. I notice in Germany, they've got 3 days of respite. I think France, possibly 3 days as well. We've got 5 here. So, your average kind of midweek soiree. 0344 499 1000. This comes from Peter. No, I'll not be changing my Christmas arrangements. The only things I would like to cancel right now is the medical profession and the government. And just for the record, I'm not just here to protect the NHS. Because it's not the National COVID Service, it's the National Health Service. We'll talk to Wendy Peake later, the woman that cancelled or had her treatment, her cancer treatment, her life-saving cancer treatment was cancelled. I mean, it's such a traumatic story. When she joined us a few months ago and outlined what had happened to her. And then her family thought, we're going to have to set up a crowdfunding page in order to pay for the treatment that she would have got. Because the cancer unit just closed down. She's literally about packing her bag, ready for number 1. She gets a phone call. Sorry, you're not on the list. She said, it's got to be some mistake, surely. It starts tomorrow. No, sorry, we've cancelled it. Wow, can you imagine? That's just one story. We'll catch up with her later to see how she's doing. So in terms of your own arrangements, had you already decided not to meet up with other I'm aware that when we open up the phone lines on this, it's very easy to get hundreds and hundreds of people calling in saying, this is outrageous. I'm not going to change my plans. And I do want to talk to you if that is your position. But I'm equally intrigued to talk to anybody who's adhering to a kind of different script here, who's thinking, no, do you know what? I'm not going to meet up. I'm not going to take that risk. There's lots of people been self-isolating since March. And whatever easings there have been or tier structures in place, they haven't changed that. And they've remained in a form of isolation since March. And arguably won't be changing it for Christmas. If that's you, I'm all ears at this end. 0344 499 1000. And Keir Starmer, I mean, not even under the light of a silvery moon, in broad daylight. In broad daylight. I call on the Prime Minister to have an emergency meeting to review the current relaxation restrictions over Christmas. Well, what's your view, Sir Keir? That doesn't matter. Well, it kind of does, mate. You are leader of the opposition. I think we should know. No, I'm just calling on the government to have a... Yes, but you must be doing that with some emphasis or some fuel in the tank that is making you... What's your view? Don't worry about my view. Let's just get the Cobra's view. And this is how it's being played out. Sadiq Khan's got a PhD in this kind of nonsense. 0344 499 1000. Straight question. What are your plans over Christmas? And will you now be changing them as a result of what you're hearing today when two big medical journals say they think the easing of the restrictions for 5 days is a rash decision that will cost many lives. What do you make of that? These are medical. We're meant to be listening to these people. Just as everybody had tried to, right, we're going to be sensible. We won't be silly. We won't be daft. We'll do this in the right way. We won't breach the rules. We'll keep to the 3 family thing. It won't even be all at the same time. It'll be over the 5-day period. We'll do it properly. And then suddenly you're told, you know what, you might have to think again about that. Will you change your plans?